Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thursday Club. I'm your host, Jesse, aka Swiss Mafia. In today's show, we're throwing a bit of a curveball at you, and we're looking at outside the Sorare bubble, specifically at another Web3 project, Pooky. So, sat alongside me, I'm delighted to say we've got Nick from the Pooky team. Nick, how are we doing today?
Yeah, I'm really good. Thanks for having me. Excited to get chatting. I've been watching some of your streams, and safe to say, I feel like there's a good fit here for us to get chatting.
Good man, good man. So, Nick, let's go right from the top. What is your role in Pooky?
So, in a nutshell, joined Pooky last November as the content lead, and essentially what that means in a nutshell is across all the social channels. I'm to do with all the communications, the comms, all the visuals that you see going out, any videos that you see going out. That's me. Any replies on Twitter, Instagram, things like that. That's me, basically. Sometimes I'm a bit tongue in cheek. Sometimes I'm serious. I try and keep the vibe sort of relevant to football. So, yeah, I've enjoyed doing it so far, and make it long it continue.
Good man. So it's fair to say you're kind of the day-to-day face of Pooky. If we're interacting out there, it's likely you're the person we're interacting with, or you're not far behind.
Yeah, honestly, it is literally that. And it's always kind of the case when you're in social media. Like, you are the face of the company. So you need to think about that, in many ways. But also, you need to bring a bit of your personality to it. You look at some of the biggest brands, even in different fields. And sometimes people sign off with their name, but it allows them to be them. For me, I feel like people have got an understanding it's me. If you've been following Pooky from the beginning, I do the videos and things like that. So I feel like I can get away with being myself in my replies. So yeah, it will always be me coming back at you, especially if you have a bad week on Pooky. I will jump on it and let you know, because I probably have as well.
Good man. Shared pain. So you're not just taking all the hammering. And in terms of like finding Pooky or how they found you, so like from my perspective, I've stumbled across it just looking to diversify what I do. I've always had an interest in Web3, specifically in sports, but outside it as well. So I've got a lot of experience in terms of startups and similar projects I've come across. Some that have perked my fancy, Sorare being one. Others that have kind of been flavor of the month and then kind of have dropped. From your perspective, how did you come to it? Have you always been in this kind of space? Is it personal interest, or how do you get here?
So I got headhunted. I was working freelance social media. I was doing some work with, all sorts, to be honest, but probably more relevant, a big sporting football brand called Sporf. So I did a lot of their socials on their Twitter, on their Instagram, things like that. A lot of outreach to influencers, finding good content, video content, like trending goals and things like that. But then, I've got a massive interest in sport, always wanted to work in sport. So generally been around it in some way or another. And then, yeah, over the years, I've worked in with a sports mindfulness app, like I said, with Sporf. I've also got my own channel that I grew to 120,000 followers on Instagram, which is a futsal channel, which is basically, highly skilled goals indoor, that type of thing. So, yeah, basically they found my profile, reached out to me, and been here since November last year now.
Nice. You sound like a very busy man. So, yeah. Nick, in terms of the team as well, I know there's a lot you probably can't tell us, but give us a little flavor of the team behind Pooky, who you're working with, how it's set up, if you can.
Yeah, so it's grown quite a lot. Even when I joined, I wasn't there at the very beginning, but I was there before the launch. And so you had the founders, and then within my team, there was essentially just a couple of people, along with the developers, the game engineers, or the back-end engineers, that sort of thing. We had a meetup back in March. We all work fully remotely. I'm the only UK-based one. Lots of the other guys are in France, Italy. We've got someone in the United States, Balkan Islands, kind of all over. But from when you sort of look across the board, directly in my team, I've got Greg, who is the operations director. And then we work closely with Pierre, who's the game director. So if you're ever in Discord and you see Pierre or Greg, they're quite up there in terms of the profile. But we also have quite a good relationship with the actual founders. It's a startup, so they're involved in everything. We converse on everything, Claudio and Stefano. So, and then, yeah, across the team, you've got you got your product managers, like Teddy, senior design game designers. And it's quite nice because it's a startup. Like you said, you've done it yourself, working with startups. You get to play the game. You get to give a response or what you think on it, and you actually see some of those things come into play. And then you've got some of the guys in the company, like the actual engineering guys, that I couldn't tell you how they do the things they do. You know, I feel like I've got an okay understanding on like things like website design, website build and stuff, but when it comes to like a front end engineer or back end engineer, the stuff they do is just absolute wizardry. But you know, like having to pull stats through and things. So so it's quite interesting. You know, sometimes when they're talking in meetings, you haven't got a clue what they're talking about, or I certainly don't. But I'm always in awe of their ability and how they ever got to that level of understanding the blockchain or whatever it was that kind of brought them to that. And then I guess more directly, I work quite closely with there's a guy in my team called Joris and another guy called Adam. And so Joris is like user acquisition. So he always, you know, plays the game, has a look at how people join the game, a bit like yourselves. Why did you get here? What was the thing that interested you? We've got Adam, who's on customer support. So if you have an issue and you're raising a ticket or you're chatting around, or even if you're just giving us feedback on Discord, he's the most likely to be the first one to respond to you, which is quite nice. He's US based. And then we've got a new guy starting today, actually. Haven't had a bit of a chat with him. And he's taken over all things influencers. So we're growing, you know, we're constantly growing. We're a startup. But yeah, the team themselves, it's safe to say you get to meet a diverse range of people working at Pooky, you know, because it is a startup and you kind of get to have a bit of input on everything, which is quite refreshing.
Brilliant. I mean, the growth element and the recruitment is something that gives me confidence in these startups, because again, just from personal experience, trying to grow your audience, whether it be via social media or actually playing the game, the common thing I come across is almost like as the platform becomes more successful, they almost can't keep up with the demand, with the need from its users, with the input, with the questions, whatever it might be. I've seen that in so many and that obviously causes the user disgruntlement, which then negative effect on social media, etc. Which is almost an impossible balance, because your overhead costs of staff typically are, you know, the highest or one of the highest within the company. So it's something that's got to be sort of recognized as they're growing. But hearing that and hearing they're growing is great. I mean, how long have you been involved with the team, and kind of what's the change been since you kind of came on board to now? I bet it's been crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'll have been here, I'm coming up to a year, so I'm like 10, 11 months or so. Obviously, there was the conversations building up to me joining as well. So it's, you know, the chats have been going on. I've known about Pooky for over a year now. Did a bit of intensive research right at the beginning. And to be honest, the things that have been changing are more because the marketing side of it. I mean, anyone that works in this space of podcasts, content creation, you know, you find yourself being a bit of a, not a dog's body, but someone that you do a lot, you know, you do a lot more than your role. And in a startup, that is even more so. So we're a small team and we are growing. Like, we added Adam, who's the customer support lead. You know, we added him several months ago from the States. We've got, like I said, a new influencer manager coming in. So our team is expanding. When I joined, there was 3 of us. Now there's going to be 5 of us. But we also have like some mods and stuff on Discord. So the team is actually slightly bigger than that. Where needed, we use freelancers as well. Like sometimes when I'm making too much video content, I get like, so I've got some friends that have been working in freelancing for quite a while. So, you know, you pull on them, but it's the engineering and it's the development, because Pooky, it is a game, you know, and it's a web app at the moment. There is the plans for it to become a fully fledged app at some point. But for now, they want to kind of flesh it out. So every time we move to a new milestone, there needs to be a new person coming in to kind of move us on and take us that way, because like you said, the workload increases. We play it every day. We almost try and break it, if you know what I mean. Like we're going in, we're testing it, we're loving it, we're giving feedback. We're experiencing lots of different like positives and negatives as we go. So then you know, as a startup, and I say we're small, I think there's maybe like somewhere between 15 and 20 people now working on Pooky, not including, you know, like temporary freelancers and things like that. But that's where you just keep saying new names come in and new guys join the meetings on a weekly basis. Like we have a stand up every week and everyone gets to chat and discuss what they're doing, where their key topics are. And it's, like I said, it's roles where it's not my forte. It's not what I do, but I'm always in awe because I'm like, you know, we want to create a sustainable game. Like you said, it's important. we don't want this going away anywhere. So as much as I've got my player point of view, and then I've got I work for Pooky point of view. And from a player point of view, obviously there's going to be things I want to see. Nicknaming of Pooky balls is something that I've been like preaching about for so long, because I've got a strategy that I want to use. And actually it's coming, and it's coming at some point. And so I get to be a player that gives that feedback, but then I also get to be an employee that realizes, there's a priority and there's a scheduling. As these new people come in, they can start spreading out the tasks and stuff. So it is really positive, because, from my point of view, it is also, you want to represent and work for a company that A, you think is going to be around, and B, you can believe in. And I get a bit of both of those, because I play the game and I really enjoy it. So yeah, I think it's positive.
Again, that's a unique position, because like the amount of times I've seen decisions being made by people who don't play the game, and then people playing the game giving feedback and changes being made by that. Having users that are actually part of the company and direction of the company. So not only you invested in the company doing well, but you actually understand the day-to-day, what works, what doesn't work, the community feel. Obviously that's slightly in your role anyway. But again, I think it's a strong position to be in. Before we get into the actual game itself, Pooky, right? Why Pooky? The name Pooky. I was trying to get my head around this. Does it mean anything? Was it just something that came to the guy's head when he set up the company? Like, is it his pet name for his wife? Where did Pooky come from?
I mean, there's every chance it's a pet name as well. But in short, it basically comes from, like, the idea is Pooky is a healthy alternative to betting. Like, that is the main principle of this. If you take the fact that we'll call a bookmaker a bookie, and then you take predictions and you put it together, they basically came up with, a young, trendy way to amalgamate the words. So Pooky is taking prediction and bookie together, and you've got Pooky. So it's unfortunately not as deep as you might think, but it's just, you come up with a brand, how you come up with a brand, and it's going to become recognizable, and we're all going to love it together.
Right. So taking it from the word bookie, does that mean the intent was to aim at that market, the kind of your traditional betting market?
So it isn't necessarily that it's an aim, but it's where the business has been born from. So the premise is Pooky is supposed to be a healthy alternate. It is. You don't, every time you place a prediction, every time you place 10 predictions, if they don't come in, you don't lose anything. And so, yeah, the connection is because it is to do with bookmakers. There are odds, but every time you predict a score, you don't lose anything. You just have a chance to win something, and I think that's one of the biggest things, and that's where the connection comes from. There is a parallel. People that love betting and gambling are going to be interested. Certainly people trying to come away from it, but it also might just if people like betting, they like betting. If they like playing fantasy sports, they like fantasy. Everyone's going to have their own reasons to come in. There is a clear parallel. Every prediction you place is based on odds, real odds, live odds. So yeah, there's a direct connection for sure. But it is a healthy alternate. You don't lose anything. And so you want to play Pooky rather than lose to the bookie. That's
like it. I want to see you branding that.
Yeah.
So in terms of like current user base, then, are you seeing like a direct translation of those typical bookmaker players, gamblers, bettors, whatever you want to call them, the accumulator guys from the weekend, like a clear market that's transitioning across to Pooky, or is it kind of like all across spectrum, anyone interested in Web3?
Yeah.
Sorare, maybe we're familiar with, most of the listeners on here. Where are you seeing them coming across from?
So it's quite a big mix. To be honest, as a company and as a marketing team, we haven't necessarily gone after the betting and the gambling side of things. We haven't said, let's actively hunt these people out. What we essentially have done is just try to go after football fans, fantasy sport fans, and then I guess a clear and obvious connection is being Web3. So people that like Web3 or Web3 gaming, or encompass all of that. If you're into Web3 or have even a little like moderate understanding of it, and you love sports, or certainly if you love football, that's where they come from. But to be honest, it is something we are looking into, because we're like, well, hang on, you kind of are doing an accumulator of your points to try and get to the top of the leaderboard, for example. So when I speak to others like yourself, you know, a lot of people play Sorare, or they play all these other different types of fantasy sport games, but they also do accumulators on the weekend, or they do, you know, they're looking for patterns in their betting and things like that. And some have come away from it and used to do it. So there is definitely a relationship there for sure. Yeah, I'd say.
Cool. Okay. So Pooky, layman's terms, me and you are down the pub on a Saturday night, having a beer. I've never played it. Talk to me about Pooky. What is it? What is it? How do I play it? Why should I play it?
In an absolute nutshell, to, you know, to anyone that's listening that, you know, might shy away from new things, or I don't want to have to put too much research into things, like, it's a football prediction game. You get to, as a new player to the game, you get to predict 10 predictions, so a full match day in the Premier League, and you're just gunning for getting as many exact scores or as close to the correct outcome as possible. And the main aim is to finish in the top 50%. And the reason I say that is because that's where the biggest rewards are. That's where, you know, there's cash rewards that you can win in the forms of crypto or Matic. But ultimately, you're, you know, like if you're predicting the Premier League at the weekend, you're looking for who's going to draw, who's going to be over or under in their game, where an upset's going to be. If you predicted Brighton to beat Man United, for example, this weekend, you're probably in the top 10, top 5, or even on the podium, which is the case. You know, we've seen a couple of players this weekend hitting the top with low rarity Pooky balls. So it's a football prediction game. You just want to get, you know, it's fun. You get to chat with your friends, compete with your friends. My friends are certainly better than me at the moment. I'm on the worst run in history. But it, you know, in terms of like talking about down the pub, it's exactly that. You're showing each other your scores, how well you've done, trying to get hints off each other. Yeah, in a nutshell, you're just trying to predict the scores.
Perfect. And you touched on winning Matic, I think it was. So in terms of like winning, is it like a weekly thing? Like, you know, a lot of users potentially might be coming across from FPL, for example, where it's an ongoing season comp. Is Pooky more like Sorare, whereby it's like a rolling weekly thing, and I can be out of the game for a month with my kids, and I can drop back in and then suddenly win? Or is it one of those I need to be engaged and playing all the time?
So it's a weekly thing. You're following, you know, the prize pools, they almost reset every week. So you got a game week. Every week there's a prize pool that's allocated that grows every week based on new players and revenue created by the business. So a percentage keeps going into that prize pool, which means that there's more and more, the more players that come in. The idea is to create like a sustainable game, sustainable community where basically you do start bringing your friends in. It's going to impact the game. If you're like, you can come in at different levels. You can just come in and like, you might only have an interest in the Premier League, for example. So you'll come in, you'll maybe just get a couple of Pooky balls in short you use to boost your odds. So you predict the score, and then you've got a Pooky ball. You might unlock a Premier League, Arsenal or Everton or Burnley or whatever it is. And then they come with odds, and you can boost the home win on it, or the away, or the draw, you know, all the different outcomes. And as you're leveling up, you develop it. You develop the area that you think the league is most common to do. For example, 1-1s and 1-0s in the Premier League, or you might think overs are more common. And you're using that to boost your predictions every week. And out of the 10 games, you're just trying to get the highest points. And like I said before, like to rank in that top 50%. And you can have weeks off, like if you don't want to do it anymore. The only disadvantage you come at that is you're not earning and you're not leveling up your Pooky balls to make them stronger, to boost your points. But it also kind of doesn't matter because you just pick up where you left off. It's as simple as that.
Got you. Okay. And so my understanding from like an entry point perspective is you sign up, you get your initial Pooky ball. Is it called a common, basic?
So there's a free to play, so you can come in, and the challenge of that, so you get a rookie ball, and you kind of go, you go through a bit of onboarding, and once you've placed a couple of few predictions and leveled up and basically got a feel for the game, you get a second one as well. The aim in that is to finish top 5. So you're competing against other players from around the world, and you want to finish top 5. Top 5 will win you a common Pooky ball, which is basically your game pass or your access to the pro leagues where these prize pools are that we were talking about, that grow week on week. And so you can play the basic league, basically looking for promotion, looking for a top 5. It counts as a promotion, or you can go straight in and you can buy a Pooky ball. Starting Pooky ball because the company's based in Europe, but we tend to work on USD. You're looking about $23 to $25 is your entry point for buying one. So you either win one worth that, and in theory you could sell it, or you can play it or whatever. But that's your entry point. That gives you access to all of the pro leagues, so you can pick one or whatever you want to do on a weekly basis, and just get predicting and start trying to win, really.
Got you. So again, thinking about most of the listeners being potentially the Sorare guys that typically listen weekly on us, your rookie ball that you get at the start is probably equivalent of playing Common League on Sorare. They're free to play, and then as you get more into it, or you decide you want to go for more in terms of Matic and kind of the full game, then you go in towards the purchase of the common ball, which is equivalent of like limited probably at this level. And then I assume you can then go levels up scarcity up, and there's more prizes available. Is that typically how it works?
Yeah. So in a nutshell, you've got your commons, your rares, your epics, and your legendaries. Your legendary is 1% of supply. So it's like it's the rarest of the Pokeballs, but they're also, they've got big boosts on them. Then you come down a bit, you've got the epic. They're about 4.5% of supply. And then you move into your rares and your commons, and your common being the entry point is about 76% of supply. Now, like in a nutshell, what that means is when you predict with a common, if you've got one common Pokeball, you've got a shot at finishing. Well, you can finish anywhere. We've seen someone with just 2 common Pokeballs win the leaderboard, taking home way more than their original like purchase price to get into the game. But if you look at it on like an average, you want to kind of look at it, the rarity that you purchase or that you come in at. If you've got a legendary, you need to have a good week every week to stay in the top 1%. As soon as you have a bad week, you plummet, you drop out of the top 10, top 50, even top 50%. You do see it, because if you don't predict well, in a way, as a common, you're a bit more like David and Goliath in the principle that you're there and you've got an opportunity to keep chipping away at the top of the table. And it may, they each come with their own strategy, in all honesty. However you want to play is up to you. You're predicting the scores, but when you've got a common, you'll adapt it differently than if you had a legendary where you've got, a supercharged Pokeball.
Got you. Is it so? One of the notched on multiple of the platforms where I see scarcity being a thing, and pretty much you can invest up to higher levels. There's often the term pitched around kind of pay to win. So you wouldn't say? Would you say this is kind of edging that way? I mean, and that's not a disregard for it, because you if you invest more, you typically would expect more back to a point. Would you say it sits there or not?
So when I joined the company, one of the biggest sort of messaging that was kind of bandied around and that we spoke about is it's not play to win, because you're not paying and then you're guaranteed to win. It's performance based. So I look at it a bit more like the equivalent of buying a FIFA disc to go into your PlayStation 5, for example, because you buy that CD, you buy the disc, you can load it in. Now you can play the game. As long as you own it, as long as you got that disc, you can play the game. With Pooky, you've got the different levels. You can actually upgrade that disc, which you can't do with a physical CD. You can upgrade it, make it stronger, and win more on a weekly basis. And so it's providing you play, providing you perform. Like I had another terrible weekend in the Premier League this week, just missing the boat on so many predictions or losing out at the last minute. It doesn't matter how much I've invested, I'm not going to have a good day. But equally, if I have an okay day, if I follow the strats, get a good strategy, get a good couple of exact scores in, all of a sudden, whatever I invested to get into the game, I'm getting a good return on my original spend for the Pokeball. So I don't know. It's the play and earn. In the play to earn field, there are games where basically if you're in it, you'll just keep earning, and it's like that mining element. But in this, it is performance based. It is, it is a bit more about your passion and your knowledge and how much you want to put into it. But also you can have the best strategy,
which is a good thing. I mean, you should be rewarded for the shift you put in ultimately. And also you want a game that lends itself to people having various strategies, because that stops the game going effectively being boring. So, okay, understand how you get your Pokeballs. One element, if you think about barrier to entry, bringing cost those trad betters, or however you want to term them, as a market, as well as others, is the fact that it still is Web3, built on blockchain, Matic being your crypto of choice. How do people actually get in there and purchase? So do I need to have a wallet, so set up a wallet and have my crypto in there to be able to get my ball? Is there, and usually with Web3 we see this kind of as the first starting point, and then they transition to wallets, etc., and other terms. Like, is this company still at that point where we're very much Web3 based, crypto based, and there is that element of got to get through that door first of all?
I wouldn't say so, and I come from a point of view of being very Web2 myself. Less than a year ago, I was Web2, never owned a wallet, never ever bought anything in Web3, and now I own 19, 20 common Pokeballs, something along those lines. I have a wallet, and it was all very autonomous. It was all very simple, and the idea is a bit like Sorare. A lot of people don't realize they're in Web3, but you are owning something that's a digital collectible. It exists on the blockchain. They just house it within. I don't know what they were like from day dot. I don't know if from day dot they were a wallet and you saw it a bit more like Pooky is now. I honestly don't know.
It was more like Pooky is now. I think if you're still in the sort of Matic zone only, then yeah, they were very much built on Ethereum blockchain, and that's kind of why I pitched the question, to be honest, was because it came across as a potential barrier to entry, but whether that's a red herring,
So the only way that, so I said, I'm not from a Web3 point of view. You log in, and don't get me wrong, we're constantly working. We're actually about to improve it again. So this will probably be an outdated conversation in the next couple of weeks or so. But essentially you come in, you unlock your first rookie Pokeball so you can have a little feel for it, try for it. And then at that point, if you want to set up a wallet, if you've already got one, you can sign in with it, attach it, all that sort of thing. But it's literally so we've teamed up with Sequence, and you literally click Sequence. It creates it within the game for you. It links the email that you've linked to the game. So you're all there. That's how you log in. It's simple. And then you can go to the marketplace. You don't need to go anywhere, which is what I thought I needed to at the beginning. I thought I need to go and buy some Matic. Well, I've never bought Matic. What do I do? Well, actually, you can just go and pay on your debit card or credit card, whatever it is you want to pay for these things on. And I literally just bought direct off my wallet, off my bank card. Sorry, as I would with many other things. Like when I play PlayStation or anything like that, I just sign in and I pay. So
yeah, you're already ahead of most in that sense then, because again, we referenced so earlier with the Ethereum and having to purchase through Coinbase or alternate methods and then deposit, then lose gas fees. I've used Sequence, so I know what Sequence is great, super quick. That is almost in through the back door. Deals with that element of crypto naive people to a point, but also has that, because I'm being a bit flippant with my question, because actually what I actually see with these types of games is you can introduce people to Matic as well, which is another element to it, which makes it kind of exciting or a bit different to the day-to-day as well, and can actually get people collecting. Made me laugh because I hear this a lot on different pods and just in different game spaces around the barrier to entry being this. Like, how do you transition your FPL market across to any of these types of games, because they're not going to want to sign up and have a wallet or this, that, and the other. And it's like somebody there was talking about how we had our parents that we laugh at our parents when they don't use the online banking. We're like, yeah, come on, online banking, it's easy because we do it, right?
Yeah.
We're now, our generation are becoming that, where we're going, whoa, wallet, crypto wallet, no, what's that all about? And as you said, it's a matter of clicks, and you're in there. It's just getting your head around it, isn't it? And I get it. Like, crypto has had some bad rep, and there are a lot of like dodgy bits out there that whereby, and you only hear the bad stuff. So I can kind of see why people get put off by it to a point.
Yeah.
Again, that's no different to banking and everyday life. But yeah, there you go. I'm reassuring to hear. It sounds like Pooky's kind of already ahead of the curve, which is great to hear.
Yeah. And like, I can't speak for exactly how it's going to look, but we're already looking at ways we can reduce that barrier where there is anyone that does feel there's a friction or anything, just because they're like, well, I don't know what a wallet is, so maybe they don't click forward, they don't carry on at that point. We're always looking at ways that we can improve and make this simple. And one of the things that we did, and we did this a while ago, was, and this was, one of the things that I didn't really get. I was like, why am I getting this gas fees? And so as a sequence holder in Pooky, when we kept saying this, we're like, but people are new, they are Web 2. So we ended up just setting it up. So if you use a sequence wallet with Pooky, once you own your Pokeball and you're leveling up or you're modifying your Pokeball in the Web3 space where you'd have gas fees, using sequence inside Pooky, there's no gas fees. We cover them. So it kind of takes that little bit of a friction out that like we talked about there. But the truth is, now I'm kind of like a year on. And once you got a bit of a bankroll anyway, because you're playing on a weekly basis, like you're talking pennies, it's so little anyway. But if you've got a balance of 0, it feels daunting because you're like, well, what do I do? What do I do? So, we're always looking at ways that we can make it better. And, we've got lots of things coming in the future that will continue to improve this. But for now, yeah, I agree. We're in a good place for a startup anyway.
A bit. So we kind of touched more on the naive kind of market, I guess, there. If you flip it to the other side, and those that have been very much ingrained in these types of games, in Web3 and crypto and everything else around it, something I've noticed, if we take the Pokeball, for example, being effectively an NFT within that project, in that space, people love to flex. So one element of flexing I can see on Pooky is obviously scores and how well you're doing. For me, another element, are we at a stage of something you see whereby people are actually flaunting their balls, and can you change your ball? Can you do anything to your ball to make it sort of unique? I'm trying to get my head around if there's almost like two markets here whereby you've got the playing the game, but effectively you could also have the Pooky ball that's in demand. You do with your ball to make it more appealing, have fun with it. It's like having skins on games. But and then also thinking from the secondary market perspective of like, I can actually soup up my Pooky ball and then sell this on OpenSea potentially and get other balls that I want. There's almost different streams maybe to Pooky. I don't know. Is that a thing?
Yeah, to be honest, there's loads of different ways to kind of look at this. But I guess in short, the best way is if, I'll take the fact that I've got quite a strong Premier League common Pokeball hand at the moment. I've got like a nice range of clubs, but where I've got like a Man City ball or a United ball or an Arsenal ball, and it's like, they're winning, you're doing well with it. And the thing that makes it desirable is you can unlock sticker packs. We do sticker drops every Thursday, which come with boosts, so you can get draws, you can get exact scores, home win, away win, more than a goal difference of more than 2, 3, 4. All these different, and you basically collect and trade and purchase the packs, see what you pull, and you add them to your Pokeball. And then, like with City, for example, you're like, they're going to be over, they're going to be winning, so you can just mold this ball into the perfect ball. And then all of a sudden, even with a common, even at the entry level, you've got something that can compete with the legendaries, with the rares, with the epics. And, even down to on the weekly basis where I'm playing, you can earn Matic, but you also earn POC, which is the in-game, so to speak, currency or token. And you use that to level up your stickers, level up your Pokeball. Then every time you level up, you get more attributes. With those attributes, you can improve the home. So if you had a City ball, you're going to be throwing your attributes on home and you're going to add it onto over. When it comes to wanting to maybe sell it or trade it, that is going to be more desirable than if you've developed it as an under 2.5 draw ball, because maybe they get a handful in a season. I don't know. You know what I mean? So you can kind of customize them how you want. You can also add additional clubs, additional league boosts. There's lots of things. And it also comes down to where you allocate those attributes. So there's loads of ways you can customize your Pokeball and your collection in total. Like you might just be a 1 or 2 Pokeball owner, but you might go up like me and decide, I want loads of Premier League Pokeballs. So you go hunting and trading for them. So there's lots of ways of making your collection or your individual Pokeballs desirable for sure. And that's not going to stop either, because we've got like new features that we'll go into shortly, and things like Ascension and crafting, where you can just supercharge them, make them stronger. If you've got spare energy, create batteries. There's so many things on the gamification side of Pooky that are in play now or coming very soon.
You mentioned that Ascension, a few other various iterations of change that are coming in? I don't know if they're in now or not. Like, do you want to expand on that?
So we recently, or over the last couple of months, we've been like building the game up a little bit further. So originally it was use your like your Pooky Ball, sorry, to predict the score. We brought out the ability to add rivals, so you can see how your friends are doing, things like that. Then more recently, we added sticker slots and stickers, so you now can supercharge, you know, however you want to look at it, your Pooky Balls and make them something else. But you know, where you come in as a common owner and the question is, can I compete with the top ones? Well, we've seen that even just with a common Pooky Ball, not necessarily well developed or overdeveloped or with loads of stickers on, like none of that existed when these people have been winning the leaderboards. They proved themselves. But with Ascension, in short, you can take 2 Pooky Balls of the same rarity and you pick a host. So you pick one as kind of like the core DNA, so to speak. And once you've leveled them up, so you're coming in, week out, getting your POC and your PXP, plus you're earning Matic, which you can use to reinvest or cash out. Once you get to, like, commons go to level 40, for example, so you unlock, I think, something like 40 attributes based on every level that you go up. So once you've got it to its peak, you choose the one that you want to ascend and you put them together and then you make a rare. And you can do 2 rares to an epic, 2 epics to a legendary. And then the biggest thing, which we don't have in the game yet, and if you're in Discord or you see it kind of milling around in the conversations on Twitter and stuff, is a rarity that doesn't exist yet is mythic, mythic Pooky Balls. But basically, it's going to be a bit of a who can get there first. You take 2 legendaries and you're going to create this one of a kind, basically. But in theory, everyone can do that. Like, even if you start as a common owner, you can take commons to rares to epics to legendaries. And that is kind of imminently coming. It should be here in the next few weeks, hope, you know, providing there's no issues. But all of the work that's gone into now, up until now, has created that foundation to move on to the next game. And that's the, you know, the nature of developing a game, I guess. You don't just go from A to Z. There's all the little stages in the middle, which from a player's point of view, as well as working for Pooky, is quite exciting because you get to see the developments. You have some frustrations on a weekly basis. You have some wins and some great bits. You get to see it develop a mold, and then, you know, the white paper's there for everyone to see. You can kind of see the roadmap where it's going. And so we're very, very close to launching it. And yeah, and it should, I believe, be in the next couple of weeks that we're live, which, yeah, like, it's going to be who can get the first mythical. That's going to be the biggest story that we'll probably start seeing.
So listen to you earlier as well. You said, I think you mentioned you got 20 commons, is it? So I'm guessing you're like prepping yourself for this to happen and then going, right, Ascension, rares, right?
So yes,
without killing your strategy.
So
although you have said you're not winning, so maybe this is what we should be avoiding.
No, the reason I'm not doing well on my predictions because I'm not concentrating, and I know I'm not. You know, life, work, parenting, all those things. But so for, you know, everyone that works directly for Pooky, we made a decision a few months ago after some community feedback. I mean, my results will prove otherwise. We just play with common Pooky Balls now. So actually, if I ascend them to rare, I'm actually more likely just becoming a salesman, so to speak. Like, I'll be building something for someone else because I won't be able to use it. So I do have a plan for some of them. I'm mostly going to level a lot of them up and keep them because that's going to be my game. That's going to be how I play Pooky, or that's certainly how I see it at the moment. I, for example, have a Genesis. So when Pooky was launched, we released 1,000 Pooky Balls in the initial mint. And so their class is Genesis. Now they have an extra boost on them because they were the first ones, you know, you're early in, that sort of thing. You can merge 2 of them together for free, which isn't the most ideal strategy because basically you're then killing off 1 Genesis, you know, and we got 1 less Genesis in the game. But like what I've done, for example, I've got an Arsenal Premier League Genesis, and I managed to pick up an Arsenal non-Genesis, so I can merge them to a rare. My problem is I don't want to not have an Arsenal Pooky Ball. So whether or not I do or not is a different thing. But the strategy is good. The strategy is right. But maybe for someone like yourself or the other people that are playing the game, trying to get up the ranks in terms of the rarities.
Oh yeah. So other than OpenSea, how can I get hold of, like, say, an Arsenal ball, and also more importantly, how are they controlling the drop of these balls in terms of minting? Like, do we know how many balls are coming out at a time, and that's that? Because again, like, probably the biggest thing that I've seen down companies of this type are like overproduction of whatever it is, whether it be stocks or whether it be in this instance overproductive assets, in this instance NFTs. Like the market's growing. How do I know? How do I make sure I'm buying into something? I know X amount are only going to go out, so I can kind of time or strategize my purchases. Can I do that, or is it very much like money out as we go?
So, for starters, there's a limitation on the amount that will be dropped on a weekly basis in terms of the percentages. So the supply is controlled very closely by the game director. So that's always looked at. But also, if you go a bit further and start sort of really digging through the white paper for those that are, interested in that side of it, you'll come across a section that basically tells you we will stop minting at certain rarities. So there will be a cap, and there'll be a point where, as all the gamification elements, Ascension and crafting, where you basically will, when you're playing Pooky, you'll win POC and Matic and PXP, but you'll also win like crafting elements. Mm-hmm. There'll be a point where you can't buy, other than on the secondary market, you can't buy a legendary, you can't buy an epic, and it'll be a point where everyone comes in at the same level. So being an early adopter to the game will help, but we're also going to, like, there'll also be a development on the way the league table looks, because there can be a misconception on being a common owner and then thinking, well, I'm not winning on a weekly basis, I'm not getting number one position. But the truth is, it isn't really designed that way, because you've invested $25 that effect on each one. And so actually we will have like a new table or leaderboard system coming in place where it will kind of help us all understand. Because even from my point of view, now only playing commons, I'm like, I've experienced the top, I've been up there, I've been podium, and it kind of goes away. But in terms of what you're saying, there will be a point where it will be crafting and it will be trading, so there will be a limited way in. I don't know what that looks like. I'm not, like I said, I'm not an engineer. I'm not on that side of things. I'm excited to see where it goes. But what it looks like in reality is, in a way, kind of to be seen, because we've released a few features over the last year, and sometimes we've had to tweak them or change them, or they've just worked really well. Like it's one of those that I think I'm personally quite excited to see how it goes. But who knows what it will look like in practicality, because until it starts happening, it's never existed before,
Sure. And I guess, like any startup, ultimately generally the early adopters are rewarded in instances to a point, and that's because they are backing the company when really their assets are higher risk than everyone else. So I think there's nothing wrong with that. It makes me want to go in and buy loads of Pokeballs right now, if I'm honest. So in terms of like actual thinking ahead in terms of like the game to you, you said you're a user, you're an end user, you play it, you enjoy it. What's like, we'll have two angles to this. What's the best thing for you in terms of playing Pooky? And then more importantly, what would you say its biggest flaw is, or kind of what would you change if you could change anything?
To be honest, one of the biggest thing that's come out of Pooky for me, which is maybe not what I expected when I joined the company, it was a football prediction game on the blockchain. It was this very Web3 like marketed concept, and I was like, well, I'm interested because I love sports and I love football, but I hadn't detached myself from football. I just wasn't into football with parenting and everything. I wasn't into football as much as I used to be. And honestly, one of the best things that's come out of Pooky for me is the fact that it's brought me closer or back into football a lot more. It's opened up other leagues to me. I used to just be a bit more Premier League. That was about me done, and like League One because where Oxford play and things like that. But whereas now I actually do have an interest in Serie A and League One, and I do check on the results because I am predicting in them some weeks. And so it's kind of picked that up. But then the other side is the fact that I feel like it's brought my friends that I grew up, talking about football and playing football. And, over the years, we've got a bit more distance. Honestly, I genuinely talk to them on a daily basis again now. And, it's basically about Pooky, but it segues into other stuff, of course. So for me, the best thing that Pooky's kind of given, if I were to sum it up, it's kind of community around football. And I've really, really enjoyed it. And even getting to know the new players coming in Discord and stuff, it's been amazing.
Can I pick up on a point as well? You say you play with your mates. again, I just think back to what I do. So I play fancy NFL, FPL, etc. Same thing. We have our WhatsApp groups, and it brings back banter and fun, and you reconnect with friends that you haven't done in ages, and it's quick and easy, right? Which love it. Does the game itself have like a mini league or types of leagues you can play with your mates? Because like that's obviously super important to be able to do that. I think what I've seen online, I've only seen people posting where they're finishing what looks like overall. Can you do your own little leagues with your mates?
So at the moment, your best option is Rivals, and it's kind of like version 1 of Rivals that we launched a few months ago. And essentially, we can all go and add each other, and then we'll have a Rivals list. So if we compete on the Premier League, you've got your boosted in your base leaderboard, and then you've got your Rivals version of it. And so instead of having everyone else that's there, it's just the people that I follow or that we've created rivalries over. There is a version 2 of that coming, which we all want now, but it's had to be roadmapped, and it's essentially what you just said. There will be leaderboards. You will be able to have one-on-ones where I challenge you. Like, I don't know exactly how it's going to look, but it could be that at the weekend I turn around and go, right, I'm predicting for Brighton to beat United, Old Trafford this, and we start having this like 1-up, 2-up, 2-1s and things like that. So there'll be my understanding from some of the examples I've seen internally is literally we'll have leaderboards. Like some of our biggest ambassadors that we work with, like the Thursday Club, for example, will potentially be able to challenge you guys in your own leaderboard and things like that. So there's a lot more to come on it. For now, Rivals is the best way to monitor and see what people are doing. But we're working on, and to my understanding, it's quite active as well. We're working on improving that over the coming weeks and months anyway. Perfect.
Good to hear. Because, I mean, again, I can only go back from my own experience. You pretty much said the same as me. That's the one thing that makes me come back to pretty much any web-based fancy sports platform. Is that just that fun? I mean, that's why people play FPL, which is, in my opinion, boring. Dare I say, shite. It's kind of past its time. Because you're not really getting anything other than being able to go on your WhatsApp group and go, you only got X amount of points, and flashing at the table, and it's a bit of a flex and good. But it's still, I think that's what I think keeps FPL still going. Is that kind of culture it's created, which is where there's like space for disruptors like this and like other platforms to kind of take that market away effectively and give the market something that they can still do all that, but just get a lot more from.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, cool. Completely. And I think just on that point, the other great thing about it is if you're spending all that time and effort learning about those FPL, and once you have a bad run on it, you're almost the quiet one in the WhatsApp group now, aren't you? And that's kind of how it goes down. But the good thing about Pooky, and it might keep you engaged in some of your other fantasy sports, is that knowledge is useful for predicting the scores. And so on a weekly basis, you can win, and if you lose, and if you have a bad week, you can come back and you can flex next week if you're having a good week, or a couple of weeks or anything. And it's almost like a clock reset every time. And I think that's what I quite like about it. If you do play other fantasy sports, I don't think it takes away from anything else you do. I set my team for FPL this year, and I honestly haven't logged back in since week 2.
Exactly. And now we're out of it. We've got no chance.
Yeah, we're done. Unless we're fluked
for the season.
Yeah. No.
So I'm not letting you get away with it. Biggest flaw, tell me how you want. What would you change? Can be polite how you pitch it. What would you change within the game? This is only in your opinion, just to make it more appealing, more fun, more sustainable, whatever it might be.
To be honest, what I would have probably liked to have seen brought in earlier, but again, not knowing enough about the back end and engineering of an app or a game, I would have liked to have seen the predictions and the live match day stuff within the app. I would like to have seen, the ability to go in and see how I'm getting on. Whereas at the moment, like anyone else, the flaw for me is I go in, I remind myself what my prediction was. I log into whatever live scores, wherever, and I check and I keep up to date with that. And I'm kind of flickering between, I feel like, it is about retention. It is about growing the game. And the more we can keep people in the app, keep people coming back, our retention has actually been really, really strong. Not coming from a building a game background. Have got lots of people in the company that have, and they're like, we're above the benchmarks. We do really well. Once people are in, they're kind of committed. But for me, I feel like that would be that's such a thing we're missing. When it can come into the game, I don't know. I will keep beating the drum for it because, I'd much prefer to be in the app, look at my scores, and then see the current score and even goal scorers and, all these things. So, but it's time, it's resources. We're a startup. I get it. But that's where I would say there's the only flaw, not only flaw, it's a startup. There's going to be loads of other things, but I'd love to see that brought in sooner rather than later. I don't know if it will, but I will keep beating the drum.
Perfect. It's a last question from me, I promise. So it's a startup company right now. There are many startups out there. I've seen them in this space. Some that are amazing that, again, they are still here today, thriving, and others that are not, various reasons. What gives you're obviously involved in Pooky, you see things that the end users don't typically see, the day-to-day comes, and I appreciate you can't share it, but what gives you confidence that Pooky will still be here in 2 years' time?
So from like a ground level, as in what I've come in and experienced and kind of what I got, like the information that I got shared and the people I got to meet on my way into the company, I didn't lightly choose to join Pooky. I took time, I weighed it up. I didn't want to rush things, but the passion that kind of came from the founders and a bit of their story, coming from the fact that one of the founders basically turned 500 euros into €1 million in the betting world, but got banned for being, addicted.
Too good.
It's good to see that the premise of the app and the premise of the game, should I say, seems to be built for the right reasons, and it seems to continue that almost a year on. There's for me, there's quite a lot of strength in the way that the developers and everyone's growing. So that gives me a lot, like I mentioned, we've had new people starting the last couple of weeks. There's been a few people, there were a few people before that. We've just added someone directly in my team. All these things are really, really good signs, as well as, I mentioned a minute ago about retention. We have great retention once someone's in the game. This is a good sign for the company. But to be honest, one of the biggest things, and I'm not overly savvy on how other projects work, but the project like Pooky has been backed by an investment fund since the very beginning. So it's actually had trust and faith put into the principle and the concept. And I guess it's going to give us an edge because it's not like we've had to develop the game up to now and now desperately clamber for funding. Funding was there from the beginning, and the fact that they've got that investment fund, I assume from, we sit in these meetings on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, gives us a good edge. But the truth is, it's the people and the passion that I see, and the fact that, even Greg, who's like the ops director in my team, couldn't love the game anymore. And, he's worked for places, people like Uber and things like that. And so, if someone like that switched onto it as well, it kind of helps you have okay, you've worked with a big company or these massive companies and you love Pooky. If you're not talking about work with him, you're talking about Pooky, which is work with him, so these
it's reassuring.
Yeah.
Great to hear. So Nick, I've interrogated you enough today. Before I let you go, any plugs? If I'm, someone who wants to know a little bit more about you or about Pooky itself, how would I find you? Where do I go?
Our most active space is probably Twitter. We're generally PookyGG or Pooky.gg across all spots. If you see me around Discord, I'm Nacho. I'm Nacho myself on Twitter as well, and I'm Pooky Football. So come in, chat, talk. Happy to share insights. Honestly, don't care if I give you good tips that I seem to be good at giving people good tips that work for them that don't work for me. So I feel like I'm people's lucky omen. I just don't seem to be converting myself. But yeah, come in, chat with us, engage. We're here. We're open to banter. We're a football game. We have to be, from my point of view. And then anyone that's looking to join Pooky, I would just say, test out the free to play or get asking questions, join our community on Discord. We've got a really growing and active Discord community where you can talk all things league orientated, language orientated, trading channels. It's a really, really good Discord.
Right, so Nick, I think I've interrogated you enough today. So thanks for joining me and giving such great insight to the platform. I hope it's given all the listeners a flavour of what else is out there. It's not just Sorare. So go get out. And I'm off to play Pooky. See you later.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.